Perfect.
Look, I like to think about the frameworks of business and agencies, but more importantly, business. And there's a lot of education out there, or just like a mindset about like SOP everything, or standard operating procedure, or like have a documentation on how anyone can do anything in your business. Like they could work at McDonald's. Like literally, they just do that so then anyone could do it. Now, that sounds amazing, but it also comes from a place of, oh, is that because we expect to like grow really fast, or we think there's going to be churn, or we're wanting cheap labor? Then there's other types of businesses that have no SOPs, and we know this, but then they've just got the right people in the job. But there's the key person risk, or key person risk, that if that person leaves, you lose a lot of IP or intellectual property when they leave as well. So I've noticed that there's two types of extremes on the scale, which is SOP everything, and then have the right person on the job, and you don't need SOPs. They just know how to intuitively do things, and they learn it over time. The reason why I find this interesting is because I've got a lot of friends who they're running agencies, and everything they're doing in their agencies, like they're like, oh, we're doing all this exciting stuff. And I'm like, when I drill deeper and deeper with them, it's really that they're just building out systems and processes or SOPs for their company. And I'm like, oh, wow. I'm like, oh, wow. I feel like, am I being left behind? Like I'm not doing all this stuff to the extreme. But then it's because I've realized that I'm on the other end, more on the other end of like, I've hired the right people. I hire people who I know are got the right skill sets, right mental skill sets, and have a long-term commitment to the company and myself. And I'll teach them and I'll give them SOPs, but like I won't be like overly SOPing every single thing in the business. It would just be like, hey, this is like with this task, you just do these things. And it's kind of like, it's like there's more of a roadmap of how the company works and how you operate within that, rather than like, if you want to do an email, this is how you do email. If you want to do like change keyword types, this is how you do it. Do you know how some people, Cory, get really granular with it? And what are your thoughts on that? Because you've probably seen and worked with companies that are like, or hear about people like you SOP everything, or the ones where you're just like, no, just get the right person in and they'll do the right thing.
Yeah. So first principles is what's your objectives as an agency, right? Or as a marketer, if you're a freelancer, do you want to grow? Do you want to scale? Do you want to have systems in place? And what kind of resources do you have available to put those things in place, right?
Yeah.
Do you have the skill sets? Are you willing to allocate capital towards people who can build those systems? All of that's going to create some nuance in the answer here. So I do think for most, the way I think about it is you want to automate as much as you possibly can, right? You want to make sure. Again, to your point, you don't want to have people problems. You want to have system problems. If you have problems, it shouldn't be like where if someone leaves, all of a sudden everything starts breaking and nobody knows what's going on or whatever. That is the worst position you could be in. Whether you're a staff, like you've got a big staff or small staff, regardless, it's going to be a major problem. So I think about that first is automate what you can. Hopefully you have resources allocated towards that, and you can maintain those things as well. From there, in terms of the priority of having an SOP, I think you do want to standardize what makes sense to standardize. We're going to talk about this in a future episode, but some things just aren't a good fit for full automation. Some things do take your human brain, your unique skill sets, your domain expertise to make sure you're making good strategic decisions that are personalized to the objective of the account that you're running, right? So in some cases you can automate, some cases you can't. There's going to be a lot of nuance within that, but that's usually how I think about it.
Yeah, awesome. And I think this also, as I was mentioning before our call, this really bleeds into the idea of people always looking for the right checklist online, like the top 10 things you got to do in your ad account, or top things you got to automate in your business, versus hiring the right person, or you being the right person, just going, I'll be able to identify the outcome or the problem, and I'll be able to fix it. Because some people want the checklist or the SOP, and some people are like, no, I'll be able to figure it out. And I think you do need, you actually need both, because the right person is still human. Like they need something just to kind of make sure that there's no, like they've done 4 out of the 5 things type of thing. But then there are people who just think that if you just create all the right SOPs, you can plug anyone into the business and they'll do it. And I think that's actually a risk, a mindset risk, because it's like a lot of what the work we do especially is it's a highly technical specialty skill that does require a lot of time to be really good at it. And you just can't just put a checklist together and just think someone can tick that off and then that's good enough. Because I've worked with third party agencies, as in I was doing consulting for them, and
Mm-hmm.
they had all these like crazy lists that they'd had these offshore people doing. And like nothing was, as in like everything on that list was being done, but nothing was being done. Like it was just like, oh, do a search term cleanup and give us like a report, but like nothing moved forward in the account. Nothing. It was just kind of like this treadmill, but it was never moving
Mm-hmm.
forward. And then I
Yeah.
realized like they had an SOP and they kind of put people in there who were like good enough just to follow the SOP, but because they weren't the right person, there was no critical thinking. They never thought about next steps, moving forward, solving problems. It was always just do the list. And sometimes by having the SOP, it actually stops people from going. Honestly, most people would just go, yeah, I've done the SOP, I've followed through, cool, let's go to the next thing, rather than the critical
Exactly.
thinking of going, hey, there's a problem here. What do I reckon we could do to fix it? What's the bigger implication? How does this fit into the business or the client? And whilst SOPs are good, I think it actually takes away the responsibility on people to not figure it out, but to figure out the next things that the flow on affects and the next
Yeah.
steps.
Yeah. Checklists, they need to be integrated with room for innovation.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're just doing what you just said. You're just creating an agency or a staff that does tasks in repetition. Which good luck finding very talented people in most countries that are going to just want to do that job. That just
Yeah.
all their job is just to do menial, repetitive tasks. Again, if that's the case, if you are SOPing most of your work, you should have had someone with technical expertise come and automate all that stuff for you. There should be no
Yeah.
reason you're paying on staff and paying health insurance and 401ks for all these people that are doing something because you're putting off automating those things.
Yeah.
So I agree. You need to have both. You need to have people that can innovate, that can intuit what might be going on beyond what the data is showing, because the data only shows so much.
Yeah.
Someone that can communicate with the client and negotiate on objectives and figure out where we can compromise and where we can't. And that's what's really going to move a business forward. If you just hire an agency and all they're doing is following a checklist, that checklist comes with a deep amount of assumptions. And those assumptions are coming from a human, which is going to be incredibly biased. It's
Yes.
assuming that that checklist is somehow perfect. Oh, well, we
Yes.
scraped 1,000 LinkedIn posts and these are all of the checklists. It's like, that
Yes.
doesn't mean you need to or should be doing all of those things. And how do you decide on the order? Or how do you prioritize one that contradicts with another? And there is no perfect checklist. You still need a human in the
Yeah.
process at this point. No AI is
Mate,
good enough for all of that.
that's perfect because you've literally just said exactly what I was about to say, which is um, who's made this checklist? Like,
Yeah.
is it someone in the company? It's like, oh, yeah, this is the checklist we follow in the company. But would someone, like, this is an example, but it's like, does someone go, well, who is this person? Or where did you get the checklist from? And, what's the, like, probability that this is going to be successful? When was it created? This could have been created 2 years ago and it's out of date. Like, and then if it's out of date, then how do you get the newest in date? Like, is it from your own direct experience with current clients, which you already have a lot of, but you've got an SOP, so you're actually not innovating, which we'll just talk about? Or is it once again going back to LinkedIn and scraping and seeing what's on YouTube, which you and I, Cory, know that 98, 99% of the stuff put out there now is it's practical, you can do it, but it doesn't deliver results. So then
Tends
you're
to be
actually
junk
just,
food.
yeah,
Junk
you're
food
just,
content.
yeah,
Yeah.
like junk food calories of like
Yeah.
advertising strategies. And
Yeah.
it was just, yeah, it's really interesting that I know this comes back to it, but it's like you've got to just have the right person on the job documenting the journey as they go, because every business, as in every agency, is different. Every way they do it is different because of the way they communicate with their clients. They might have a certain leaning or skewing towards a certain type of industry, which the industry is more important than the ad channel. So like Cory's checklist would be different from mine because Cory does more e-commerce compared to lead generation. We're both using Google Ads. We're both using data analytics, but what our checklist would be very different. But most
Yeah.
people are like, oh, just give me Cory's checklist of analytics. And the reality is a lot of the things on that thing would be probably a lot of fundamentals and then a few advanced things, but the advanced things have been created by you and other people wouldn't be able to really do them. But I really think that like this whole idea of SOPing things is technology is moving fast, clients are changing, advertising channels are changing. Unless you're really updating them as you go, you just need to set a foundation of like, here is the framework of how we operate within Google Ads. Here is the fundamentals we operate from, but you need to innovate. And when you start getting results, you've got to share those insights and then apply them at other clients and see if we can start to see if there's a ability to roll that out for all other clients if there's like a probability of success. But I actually find now, realistically, now thinking about the whole AI game is this whole SOP thing where it's like scrape everything on every LinkedIn post and create an SOP based on this. Like it's based on the assumption that the information's good, but you haven't seen the data behind the accounts. You're just trusting people. And these people on the internet are just trying to make money. They're just trying to get clients. Visibility equals profitability. If I'm seeing more, I'll get more clients. We all know that. And the last thing is I have a client at the moment who's amazing. He's very tech savvy. I don't run his accounts, but he built a ChatGPT tool for us, like a prompt, because he's like for e-commerce. And whilst he's gone into a lot of effort, because he's not a Google Ads expert, he's like referencing all these different e-com experts' Twitter accounts. You know, go through this person's Twitter account and then get all their strategies. But I know most of these people's Twitter accounts, and I know the strategies straight up don't work. They're just like McDonald's strategies, like very just basic strategies just to like get people all like hot and heavy, like scale and this, but it's like they don't work. And I know that because we're actually growing big e-commerce accounts. And I'm like, it's fundamentally flawed because this person has built this perfect AI script, AI prompt, but he's getting the wrong inputs. And then because he gets the wrong inputs now he's going to get the wrong outputs. So they're just a few things I just wanted to share.
Oh, look, I mean, ChatGPT doesn't know. ChatGPT shouldn't know Google Ads better than you do, even though the training data set is using and scraping the content from the internet. And that might not sound like it makes sense, right? But at the end of the day, you have to look at how these things are working. And at the end of the day, you are the one bringing the domain knowledge. And these LLMs are relying on you to make sure that they're also like kept in check. Like they'll go off on some tangent. Just ask it right now. Go to the 4.0, the free version of ChatGPT and go like, what's the best way to run Google Ads? It's a terrible prompt. And that's my point. And see where it takes you. And you'll very immediately go, yeah, you know what? This isn't really good advice. So you are the expert. I know we all want a quick fix. We all want a perfect checklist. We were chasing this like shiny object and this new thing. But I do want to come back to if you are an agency or marketer and you're trying to build these SOPs, I go back to some of the principles of development, right? So application development, with software development, whatever. There are three main principles that you're always trying to keep in mind when you are building out a code base. And these apply here with SOPs for marketing, and especially if you're an agency. You want it to be scalable, you want it to be maintainable, and you want it to be modular. Right? So scalable, you want to, while you're creating it, you want to build a solid enough foundation where you can scale this thing to the moon if needed. And of course, you need to create some flexibility, and it's never going to be perfect. You don't want to get stuck in that. But you also want it to be maintainable. In other words, you can plug other people into this, and it is easy to like someone to jump in and go, okay, where is everything? How does this work? You should have some maintainability in there. And you also want it to be modular. Now, this leans a little bit more code heavy, but in the way that we could translate this just kind of PPC and SOPs, you want to build flexible SOPs. You want to go into it with the mindset that these parts, if you've been doing this long enough, these things that are automated or that a person has to do manually, these things haven't really changed much over, let's say, the last 5 years. These things, these SOPs are probably going to be pretty solid. We don't have to inherently build in a lot of flexibility there. Those live on this island. Okay, cool. Yeah. Now let's work on the things that have to have built-in flexibility because this ad platform that we provide services around is going to evolve. And so you need to be strategic. But I think a lot of us, we're entrepreneurial. If we're running the agency or we're creating these things and we're just like, let's just get it done. MVP, MVP, MVP. Yeah. And we're just like running and running and running. And we're not realizing like all the trash that we're leaving behind us as we're sprinting blindly in this direction. And so we have these blinders on. And then all of a sudden we try to hire people because we're growing so quickly. And then these people get plugged into a system that only you really can understand because
Yeah.
you were sprinting this whole time. So you want to find a balance, as is life, somewhere in the happy middle where you do have the scalability, the maintainability, the modularity built in. You've taken the time, you've created or worked with someone to create some of the things that can be automated. Like we're
Yes.
talking robots here, not like people doing all of the stuff and pushing a button. Automate as much as you can, but make sure, my whole point is to build flexible SOPs, and no content piece is going to give you everything. Just don't
No.
forget that. Yeah.
Because it can't, even if it's, or at the best, it can give you inspiration and a starting
Yep.
point. But
Yep.
after that, it's all on you because you've got to make it fit you. You're not trying to fit into this system. That's why, like, when I look, once again, checklists or automation systems or anything, it's like, you got to make it fit you. And then probably the way to make it fit you is, number one, you identify what's the outcome you want to achieve ultimately from it. Number two, where are the problems you're actually facing now? And then number three is actually just keeping it really simple. Because most of the time, I even look at how I do advertising compared to other people or even people in my team, and mine's even more simpler than theirs, but I get better results. And you've got to go from this point where you start with fundamentals, then you go to complexity, and then you come back to simplicity. But you start with fundamentals, but fundamentals isn't simplicity because you need the complexity to really understand why the fundamentals work, why like this works. Like you've got to experiment on the journey as well. But there comes back to a point where you realize there is just a very simple, clear approach to a lot of this. And you can't get that from a checklist. You can only get that from direct experience. Because if you're trying to get that from a checklist, you're never going to know if a client goes, hey, why don't we do this? And then you're spending half an hour on a call with them asking some random things that because you're following a checklist, you're like, oh, maybe I should do it. And then you spend 4 hours implementing it. You're asking you over emails and questions, all this stuff. It's not getting results. Everyone's stressing out. Versus you have that, you're the right person on the job. You've got the experience, and you're going, look, based on your goals in the business and what we've experienced with other clients, it's not best for you. So you've got the one that's stressing you out and taking 20 hours a month, or the one you just answer in 5 seconds going, based on our experience with other clients and your business and your outcomes, we don't think it's appropriate. And you say it with conviction because you do know that that's the case because you're the right person because you've had all the experience. You're not the SOP person.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I was just thinking, going back to that buddy of yours. He's building out the SOPs, right? But I think it's very easy to get all anxious about trying to build the perfect SOP. At the end of the day, um, understand that the journey is never ending. You're going to keep learning things, which
Yeah.
means you're going to have to change that SOP. So if you're trying to get into it and say, let's build the rock solid 100% SOP, and we'll change it when we have to. I understand that, and especially
Yeah.
from an entrepreneurial and systems thinking standpoint, I get that. But again, you gotta build in flexibility. Expect not only the marketplace that you work in and where your expertise is to evolve, but you are going to evolve. You're going to learn things. You're
Yeah.
going to get accounts that you don't have SOPs for because you are evolving as a business. You are attracting new clients and clients with more complex challenges and unique challenges that go, man, we need to think outside the box here.
Yeah.
Well, that's where your SOPs are going to start falling apart if you're over relying on them. Yep.
Yeah. And that's the risk is you evolve over time, your business evolves, but then you've only got one person building that SOP, not like a collection of people brainstorming and working together as a team going, hey, we've noticed all these things. Yes, let's add this in. Like, let's maybe build out a checklist for that, but just note on it that this isn't going to work all the time. But there's two interesting things here. There's number one, there's the SOP around the technology, like the platforms or whatever, and
Yep.
they do change. And we know that. We know that. So there's no SOP that will last forever. There'll be fundamentals that I think will last for a long time, but the SOP itself on how to click buttons won't. But then there's also the other side, which is the human side of here's how we communicate with clients. And you should have a framework on how you communicate with clients, but not an SOP because different clients require different things. Some are just chill, laid back, don't need anything. Some are a bit more anxious at the start and you use different communication skills. But I think it's more important to have frameworks than SOPs because SOPs are very do this, 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 this. And I know for me, I'm a free thinker and I like thinking frameworks, but I've worked at places that were no, this is the process. And then I just like lock into it, and I was like, whatever, like, you kind of check out as well, because then it's like, well, you don't want my input, so I'm not going to give it.
Yeah,
Even though they say they want your input, then you actually lose the motivation because you're losing your autonomy of creative
totally.
thinking.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't
Excellent.
recommend. Yeah, I don't recommend that for agencies to. You don't want to structure every little thing. Most
No,
people
man.
don't want to work within that. It's not fun. So
No.
yeah.